Hey, what's up everyone, it's Kokoro. Now, whether you're here because the latest live stream just showed the upcoming Raiden Shogun rerun, or even months after not building her, you've come to the right place. Today we'll be discussing all the things you need to know about Raiden Shogun, whether it be her skills and playstyles, weapons, artifacts, and even team compositions. I'll be guiding you throughout all of those. Now, just in case you need to skip to any parts you want, I've put timestamps in the description and the comment section so I can make it easier for you. Or you could just lay down and relax and watch the whole thing. And lastly, it would be much appreciated if you could drop a like on this video. Only takes a few seconds, and if you sub to my channel, that would be even better. Anyways, let's get straight into the video. Let's start it off with Raiden's usage. Her roles are burst support, a DPS buffer, and energy support all at the same time with the right build. Onto her talents, we have her normal attack, which is the worst part of her kit, not only because its scaling is bad, but because the synergy with the other abilities is also not that good. Now, because of this, people tend to play her as either a sub DPS or a support, which brings me to my next point. Her elemental skill. You will notice three things from this skill. Number one is the absolutely insane uptime of 25 seconds with a cooldown of 10 seconds, which means that as long as you switch into Raiden and activate your skill every 20 to 25 seconds, you will have 100% of the uptime. The second thing you will notice is that it deals about 40 to 71% scaling from level 1 and to level 9 respectively. The damage that you get from casting is at about 200% scaling for level 9, all of these doing electro damage. And last but definitely not least is the elemental burst damage bonus. So to put this into the most simplest terms, if the elemental skill is up, both your Raiden Shogun and all your teammates will do increased burst damage. The way this works is the higher the burst cost, the higher the burst damage increase. For example, something like Zhongli, Albedo, and Diluc will not benefit as much from this skill because their burst cost is only 40, hence a lower damage increase. However, someone like Raiden Shogun herself, Kujo Sara, or even Xiangling have a higher burst cost, which also means that they will be doing higher burst damage. To show you guys an example, let me show you guys Xingqiu's burst with and without Raiden's skill. Next up is Raiden's burst. This is where her kit gets juicy but confusing at the same time. I will explain all of this later in the artifacts section. First, let's go over three things that her burst does, being a lot of damage, energy restoration for Shogun and her teammates, and damage bonus based on how much resolve stacks she has. Now, no need to explain the burst multipliers as you guys can see on the screen already, but that brings me to my second point. The damage can be increased based off of how much resolve stacks you have. That we're gonna get into in a very few moments. So let's get the energy restoration out of the way. The first thing that I need to mention is that you can only provide energy to you and your teammates in a total of 5 hits during your burst. You're able to trigger this every 1 second, so you don't have an issue in terms of that because the total duration of your burst is 7 seconds. When your burst is at level 9, you restore 2.4 energy per hit, but don't worry, this stacks even further with a passive talent, which we will go more in depth very soon. Let's go back to resolve stacks now and talk about how to get them. One way to earn resolve stacks is by using another teammate other than Shogun and use their burst. And at burst level 9, Raiden gets about 0.19 resolve stacks per energy, which means if someone like Child with an average cost of 60 burst energy uses his burst, Raiden will get about 11 stacks. Keep in mind that the maximum resolve stacks that Shogun can hold is 60. Anything more than that and it's pure waste. And for each resolve stack that you will have much stronger burst multipliers. Speaking of resolve stacks, let's get into Raiden's passives. So as we already mentioned, there was one way to get resolve stacks. Let's talk about the second way. This is the first passive that you get, called Wishes Unnumbered. You get this from your first ascension on Raiden Shogun, and pretty much what it does is anytime one of your party members get any elemental particles or orbs, Raiden Shogun will receive 2 resolve stacks. So if you're able to get elemental orbs every 3 seconds, in a span of 12 seconds you're able to get 8 chakra stacks from this alone. A very good passive that you have just in the back nonetheless. And this passive right here is what completely changes her kit. It's unlocked at the 4th ascension of Raiden Shogun, and each percent above 100% energy recharge that Raiden Shogun possesses gives her 0.6% greater energy restoration from your burst, as well as 0.4% electro damage bonus. Now, this is going to be very important when we're in the artifact and weapon section because there's a very big distinction between energy recharge, attack, and electro damage bonus, whether it be the goblet or sands, and I will use the best of my ability to make you guys understand it as much as possible. Lastly, this one is actually pretty good. I personally like it because I'm always out of Mora. Her last passive is called the All preserver, and pretty much you spend 50% less mora when ascending polearms or swords. In conclusion, there's been one thing you've been hearing a lot in this section, and that's energy, energy, energy. That's what Raiden Shogun is based off of, and that's what Electro itself is based off of. So as I said earlier, she not only helps the team with a lot of good damage, but also with energy restoration. Now, just one moment before we get into the weapon section, I wanted to talk about which one is better. Now, there's been a lot of people asking me, hey, do I go for the Engulfing Lightning or do I go for Raiden C1 or C2? And my answer would definitely be C2. If you're only gonna go for Constellation 1 on Raiden Shogun, it's definitely not worth it because all it does is give you extra chakra stacks, which is good, but the weapon gives you a more damage increase. However, at Constellation 2, which is called the Steel Breaker, while you use your burst, you ignore 60% of the opponent's defense, which, believe it or not, does a lot of more damage. So in conclusion, if you're planning on either going for C1 or the weapon, you would want to go for the weapon. But if you're planning on going for C2 or the weapon, then definitely go for C2. So for the weapon section, I don't want to waste anybody's time, so I just made a quick tier list. We're gonna go over all of these weapons very quickly. As we already know, the Engulfing Lightning is her best weapon in slot. This is really SS tier, so we're just gonna move on to the S tiers and the A tiers. To get a general consensus about the weapon, you need to understand that for the weapons, it's a very wide known fact that running energy recharge is the best, not only for the extra energy restoration, but also just for Ball's kit in general. So considering this, I put the catch and the Skyward Spine on S tier. When it comes to solo damage, the Skyward Spine barely beats the catch, but for overall support and usage, the catch barely beats the Skyward Spine. But if you get enough attack buffs from your teammates, then using the catch is actually better for the higher energy recharge and the passive. All in all, using either of these two weapons have no backlash, and you shouldn't worry too much about choosing between the two. But just in case you guys didn't know, you can farm for the catch for free. Even though it may take 5 to 8 hours farming for those stupid fish, it's 100% worth it regardless. Not only is it Raiden's best free to play in slot, but also Xiangling's. Now onto the A tier. Let's start off with the Wave Breaker's Fin. Ball loves it when her teammates have high energy costing bursts for both her resolve stacks and damage increase for her teammates. But you can synergize this even further with the Wave Breaker's Fin. The secondary stat is attack percent, but the passive is what really makes up for it. The higher total energy burst cost of your teammates will increase Ball's burst damage. This is without mentioning the stupid high base attack that the weapon already provides at level 90, that being 620 attack. The next two on A tier is the Favonius Lance and the Prototype Star Glitter. These ones both provide energy recharge, but they're not as good as their counterpart, the catch. The Calamity Queller, Primordial Jade Spear, Vortex Vanquisher, Staff of Homa, Deathmatch, and Blackcliff Pole all provide very good DPS, but not much support. In conclusion, the best tip I can give you is just farm for the catch if you don't have the Engulfing Lightning or the Skyward Spine, and actually just use it on Ball. And if you already have it, that's perfect. We are now in the artifact section, and you guys already knew what was coming. The 4-piece emblem is her best possible set. This 2-piece set not only gives energy recharge, but the 4-piece set complements Raiden Shogun's kit, especially because the stat that she gets from Ascension is energy recharge. This is the set you're gonna need if you want a lot of energy recharge and damage at the same time. Before I even get to the main and substats, I need to explain how damage works in this game, because this is a very important thing for Raiden Shogun. To explain as best as possible, attack is only additive, while elemental damage is multiplicative. Let's assume that a skill does 100% of your attack. If you have something like 2000 attack with 0% elemental damage bonus, there's nothing to multiply the 2000 attack with, therefore leaving you with diminishing returns of only 2000 total damage. But on the other hand, if you have 1000 attack with 100% elemental damage bonus, you are multiplying a low attack by multiplicative damage, which is also a total of 2000 damage as well. Yes, you may be getting a lot of elemental damage bonus, but what's the point if there's no attack to even base it off of in the first place? But this time, let's meet in the middle and give it 1500 attack with 50% elemental damage bonus. As you guys can see, we get more damage in total of 2250. Now, since I know a lot of people are bad at math, I'm gonna put this into monkey caveman terms. Too much attack, bad. Too much elemental damage bonus, bad. Good attack and good elemental damage bonus, good. Before we move on to the main stats, let's get the substats out of the way. The top 4 things you definitely want to go for is these: crit rate, crit damage, energy recharge, and attack percent. Crit provides a lot of attack damage bonus when you land it. Energy recharge, as we already said, good for Raiden. And attack percent is self-explanatory, you just do more damage. The avoidable but fine substats are flat attack and elemental mastery. Now, flat attack doesn't provide as much attack as attack percent, while elemental mastery isn't as good because electro reactions are not that strong. As for the bad substats, it's anything to do with defense and HP substats, because they don't help Raiden's kit in any way whatsoever, unless you have a skill issue and don't know how to dodge. Now the two common mistakes I see with most people when using Raiden Shogun comes with the main stat department. As we know, the flower and the feather always have a main stat of HP and attack respectively. But let's talk about the circlet first. So for Raiden Shogun, I've tried many builds and tests, so if you're using an energy recharge weapon, which you should be using, the best crit ratio I found to be is an approximate of a 1-to-3 ratio. You don't want anything under than 50% crit rate. An optimal crit rate is about 50 to 60%, while your crit damage being somewhere around 150 to 180%. The only time you should have 40% crit rate is if you're using the catch, because the passive increases your burst crit rate by 12% at refinement 5. So use a crit rate or crit damage circlet according to the same ratio of 1-to-3. Also keep in mind, if you're using an attack percent weapon, which yet again you should not be doing, but if you are, then just use the same ratio that I just proposed to you. As for the people who are using crit rate and crit damage weapons, you want a crit ratio of about 1-to-2 and 1-to-2.5. A good optimal crit rate being around 60 to 80%, while the crit damage should be about 160 to 200%. Onto the sands, which is the most common thing I see people doing wrong. Please use energy recharge on the sands. I see way too many people using attack percent sands, which by the way, I do account reviews on my stream every time I stream. If you want your account reviewed, then go ahead and turn on notifications. And the reason they do this is because they think they lose out on too much damage. First off, let's compare the two. Energy recharge helps with extra energy restoration for both yourself and your team members, and you are also benefiting further from your 4-piece emblem, which means you gain extra burst damage. And lastly, you gain straight electro damage bonus from your passive. Now let's compare that to the attack percent sands, which only adds more damage. Keep in mind that yes, attack percent sands does add a little bit more damage than using energy recharge sands, but for overall utility, energy recharge is better. Also, using an energy recharge sands leads up to the second point, your goblet. Now remember earlier when we were talking about having too much elemental damage bonus or too much attack percent was bad? Well, this is why. Hypothetically, let's just say you're using an energy recharge sands at max level with the catch while ball is level 90. You will automatically have 59.9% electro damage bonus from your passive. This can increase further up to 60% or even more depending on how much energy recharge you have on your other pieces. Now that you have a lot of electro damage bonus for the goblet, you can run either electro damage bonus or attack percent. This is where the diminishing returns come in. If you use an electro damage bonus instead of attack percent goblet right here, then you'll be losing out on a lot of more damage. So in conclusion, unless you're using the Vortex Vanquisher for whatever reason, then you should be running an energy recharge sands and attack percent goblet. When it comes to the Vortex Vanquisher, you can run either electro damage bonus or attack percent. It's pretty much the same damage. And there you go. In terms of how Shogun needs to be built and played, that's where it's at. So now let's quickly go over the constellation section. Just to be clear, not a single constellation of Raiden Shogun is bad. All of them are very good except the C5, which increases her elemental skill by 3 levels. Anything past level 9 for the elemental skill has very little use. So first off, let me give you guys the best plans for a constellation and then go over them. Either keep her C0, get her to C3, or push her all the way to C6, depending on how lucky you are or how much you spend on the game. Her C1 pretty much means that she gets extra resolve stacks from your teammates by 20%. But if the character who uses the burst is an electro character, then it's increased by 80%. This simply means more consistent burst damage with Raiden Shogun. As for her best constellation, her C2 ignores 60% of the enemy's defense, which is amazing for DPS. Her C3 increases her burst level by 3, which means higher burst damage. As for her C4, she increases all party members' attack by 30% when her ultimate ends. This lasts for 10 seconds. And finally, her C6 reduces elemental burst cooldown of her teammates. As long as you're consistently attacking in your burst mode, her teammates will have a total of 5 seconds less for their cooldown on their burst. This means someone like Kujo Sada with a 20-second cooldown burst can have it reduced by 5 seconds each time, which is a consistent 15-second burst cooldown. So when it comes to team comps, just like Zhongli and Albedo and many other supports, she can fit on most teams. So here I'll be recommending single characters that can be used with her, as well as some of her best team comps. Now, one thing unfortunate that I need to mention is that Raiden and Beidou don't work well together. This is because Beidou's ultimate only works with normal attacks, and Raiden's burst does not count as normal attacks. So usually I'd always recommend another electro character with Raiden Shogun for the dual resonance. One of them could be Sara, Fischl, or even Yae Miko, in which a lot of people say that that she will be very good with Raiden Shogun. Having that dual electro resonance with Shogun's already extremely good energy restoration ability pretty much means that everyone on the team is gonna have 100% burst uptime. Always try to go for high burst cost teammates, as it will not only help them but also Raiden Shogun a lot. And obviously I will not be going out of the team comp section without talking about the infamous Raiden national team, which consists of Bennett, Xiangling, Xingqiu, and finally Shogun herself. These characters resonate extremely well with each other, from the extreme off-field damage to the burst spams to even Bennett's damage buff. Another really good one I'd recommend is the main DPS Eula with the Raiden comp. As we all know, Eula has a lot of extreme energy cost issues, but with Raiden Shogun's help, that won't be as much of an issue as before. Also, don't forget that Raiden's skill does periodical electro damage for 25 full seconds, which means that as long as you're spamming your E ability with Eula, you're gonna have unlimited superconduct on the enemy. As for the last two characters, you can fit in something like Rosaria, Diona, or any other cryo battery, as well as Bennett for the damage buff. Using her with an animal support is also very good. So honestly, when it comes to Raiden Shogun, just use your favorite characters and have the most possible fun. For example, I use an electrocharge team containing Child, Fischl, Shogun, and Xingqiu all the time. Now you have everything about Raiden Shogun that you need to know. To make a conclusive statement, she's a must pull. Personally, and the opinion of most other people, agree that she's definitely one of, if not the best characters in the entire game. Not to mention, she's the 4th most used character in the Abyss of 2.4 as we speak. And as always, if this video helped, a like and subscribe would be appreciated. And if you turn on the bell notification, I'll be posting an in-depth guide on Yae Miko once she comes out for the first day. Anyway, see you guys in the next video. Peace.